Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Encounter 331 or 331. My name is Jono, Logan, and there are a lot of things I enjoy about visiting Nova Scotia. Spending time with my parents is great. Having easy access to their cottage is fantastic. I head out there whenever I can. Really nice farmers market on Saturdays where I can find just incredible quality mushrooms and actual reasonably priced steaks as compared to Ontario. However, there can be some bad parts too. Like I terribly miss Amanda, and I miss the end part of summer in Toronto with my friends. Also, I really miss having a solid internet connection because boy, oh boy, was this a problem today getting this recorded. But, there's one thing that I really hadn't factored into the bad parts of Nova Scotia, and that is that my laptop is now over 10 years old, which is weird because I still think of it as my new laptop. It's a Dell XPS 15. It was a beast when I first got it, and honestly, still works fantastic. I don't really have a reason to get a new laptop. I only use it when I travel. I can record, edit podcasts on it like I am right now. There's no problems at all until you happen to get a review podcast code for a game that you've been looking forward to for years. So I ask you, audience, what are the odds that my second most anticipated indie game would release in the same month as my first most anticipated indie game? And turns out the odds are pretty good, and I can't play either of them. I have a review code for Hades II, and I have absolutely nothing in Nova Scotia that can play it. Can't even install it. Settings don't matter. I could turn them down to the point where Cerberus looks like a three-headed potato. It still wouldn't run. So I need to wait a few more weeks until I can play this game, which is kind of funny when you think I got a review code and yay, I got an advanced code, and now everyone's going to play it before me. Woohoo. So today I am going to be the podcast cuck, and I'm going to hear all about Hades 2 from two folks who have been playing the game for a while now, our Hades 2 reviewer, Zek.
Hello.
And Matt.
Ready or not, hence I go.
That's dramatic. Okay, so obviously we'll get into this in a bit, the actual Hades 2, but I just want to give the audience a little bit of background. So Hades 2 is developed by Supergiant Games, their independent studio, founded in 2009. They debuted with a game called Bastion. It was a critically acclaimed action RPG, kind of hand-drawn look, great game. And then in 2014, they released Transistor. It was a sci-fi action RPG. And if you look at it, you think, that kind of looks a little familiar. And then in their third game, Pyre, it was a super experimental game, and it blended party-based RPGs. It was basically a basketball game. Really, really unique gameplay, a branching story. And throughout all of their games, they're recognized for their distinctive hand-painted art style and mostly evocative soundtracks as written by Darren Korb. But probably they're best known for, of course, Hades. So Hades launched its full version in September 2020. It was following an early access period that began in December of I think 2018. And if you're ever curious about the development of Hades, really amazing documentary produced by NoClip. It shows a lot of insights into the creation of this game, and it actually shows like what happens when a pandemic happens, like a couple of months before your game is going to be released. So I highly recommend that documentary. It's amazing. Hades, of course, critically acclaimed across the board. It was a massive success that sold over 1 million copies by September 2020. So like right out of the gate. And it's a roguelike, basically. It's every single run starts anew with nothing, except, there are some things. You can get some persistent upgrades, including story advancement and that kind of thing. It's a really, really cool game. And it was such a cool game that Hades 2 was officially announced at the Game Awards a few years ago. And this was the first time that Supergiant Games ever developed a direct sequel to one of its previous titles. So the people listening to this, some of you may have already played Hades 2 because the game, just like its predecessor, released on early access in May of 2024. Since then, they've been getting feedback from the community. They've been refining the game. They've been adding new content, new levels. And a few weeks ago, the full 1.0 version of the game was announced. And so we're getting the full game now, final story content. And I am so excited to play this game. And I'm really excited to talk to both of you about it because you have been playing this game and I am very, very jealous. And I don't usually get jealous, but I am jealous right now. So, Zek, before we dive into the sequel, I was curious, can you tell me your experience maybe playing the original Hades or maybe some other Supergiant Games games?
So I played Hades about 5 years ago at this point. So I don't want to kind of say anything that's I guess incorrect about the game, but I do remember it being like one of the best roguelites I've ever played, and I don't usually like that genre, so I think it's an excellent roguelite for people who don't like roguelikes.
I agree. I actually do like the genre, but I think it's the way that for me, it's the way that story progression happened in the game that it really gave it a sense of momentum throughout the whole thing. I thought even runs that really nothing really happens, or you get a terrible build, or you die in the first 5 minutes. It still felt like you were advancing in some way. Matt, what was your relationship with the first Hades?
Yeah, like Zek, I played it first in 2020 when it launched on Switch. I beat it a handful of times, but I'm also not a big rogue light or like person. I feel sometimes I feel like it's kind of an excuse for like lazy design or just like bloating a game needlessly. But Hades truly felt like it deserved like that, genre's moniker, I suppose. Like it did it justice, and I loved it the whole way through. But a year or two ago now, I re-got the game on PS5, and I actually like played it through to get the platinum trophy, which I think I ended up having to beat it like 80 or 90 times to get like every encounter with like Achilles and like some of the other characters. So like I really am intimately familiar with like the first Hades, so I was really looking forward to Hades 2. But yeah, big fan of Supergiant Games here.
Have either of you played any of their other games? So Bastion, Transistor, or Pyre?
Yeah, I played Bastion, like I think, didn't it launch on like PS3 originally? Like, yeah, I played Bastion whenever it came out, and then I played a bit of Transistor and Pyre, but the only one I really got deep into was Bastion, I think. But I think I've touched them all at some point. They're always like releasing on PS Plus.
Yeah,
I might have played them on PS Plus, but I've played hundreds of games, so I don't want to. Like,
totally understand.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's actually get into Hades 2. So, Zek, your review should be up on the site by the time this goes live, so I highly recommend everyone go over to rpgfan.com to check it out. Okay, actually, before we move to the first game, Zek, you mentioned, are there any aspects of Hades, the first game, that you feel could have been improved upon in some way that required the iteration of a sequel?
I honestly don't think so, because I think it doesn't make sense to fix what isn't broken, in my opinion. And I think if you try to change too much, you could end up messing up like what makes a great game great.
I 100% agree with you with both that sentiment and also the fact that I have trouble imagining how Hades could have been improved upon, which is one of the reasons I was so surprised when they announced they were doing a sequel, because usually a sequel builds on the game mechanics of the previous title. So I'm going to be really interested to hear how that works. And Zek, you also mentioned, and you mentioned in your review that you deliberately avoided early access. Any reason, or are you just like me, where you just want to play the whole game when it comes out?
I am generally just not like I like having review codes for games, but I like playing the 1.0 version. I generally don't play betas that often, so that's just a philosophy.
I'm the exact same way. I've played some early access, and I mean, it's great. But they never feel complete because, hey, they aren't. Matt, did you play any of the early access version?
No, yeah, and for the same reason as you, Jono, I'm like I've got lots of other good games to play right now, so I'm gonna wait for the full thing to be baked in the oven.
Yes, and baked it was. So, how about Zek or Matt, either one of you? Do you want to tell me what the story is a little bit? No big spoilers, but just like, a little bit of the background, what's happening.
Yeah, so it's essentially a continuation of the Hades story. It takes place just sometime after. It's like a new main character, but there's like all the gods return, and there's like references to the original, so it's very much a successor.
Direct sequel, yeah.
You don't have to play the first game really to be invested in the story, but it does help because you'll be searching for like the missing characters. Like the premise is that you play as Melinoe, who is the younger sister of Zagreus, that she was so young that she never really met her family or knew her family before they were taken away or killed or just got erased in some way by the Titan Kronos, who returned Hades' father. So the whole premise is that Melinoe has been raised in secrecy by like the witches in this like forest between the underworld and between Olympus, kind of like this limbo area, the crossroads. And her whole life's goal, she's been raised to kill Kronos. And that's kind of like the beginning of the game is very like, she comes across as very aggressive and like single-minded of like the way that all the characters greet each other is just like death to Kronos, remember the mission. So
not since Kill Chaos has such a drive been known.
Yeah.
So the game basically kind of, I imagine, follows a similar structure. It's a roguelike, just like its predecessor. So the idea being you go out into the world of some kind, you fight, it's an action RPG, and you end up dying. And then you end up getting sent back to the beginning. In Hades, the reason was that Zagreus he was the god of blood. So when he dies, he just like literally respawns back in hell, or Hades, I guess. What is the reasoning here? Like, clearly there's a time travel mechanic because Kronos is, right there in the name. How does it work? So I assume, I'm just going to take a guess. I have not looked at this. I don't know. I'm assuming that when she dies, she is sent back in time, essentially, to when she first set out.
No, but that would be even cooler. It's literally just she's been trained by the witches to have like a safeguard spell, so that when she's like on the verge of death, she'll say like "Shadow, take me," or like "Return to Shadow," and it will just like safely transport her back to the crossroads where she's hidden from Kronos.
Yeah, I like mine better, actually. I'm not even going to pretend that I don't. Okay, so in Hades, the whole point was to escape the underworld. You are stuck there and you are trying to look for your mom, and you just need to escape. And no one's ever escaped before. So you make your way through the various levels of the underworld and eventually get to the surface to fight your dad. Here, the game's journey is a little bit different, more complex. I believe there are two distinct paths. Zek, you said in the review, there's the underworld and then there's climbing Mount Olympus. I'm curious how this dual path structure changes the experience as compared to the single progression route as found in the original game.
So both of these are full paths, and like at first you only have access to the underworld, which is kind of, I don't want to say the tutorial path because it's just as big as the other one, but the bosses are easier, the encounters are easier. You don't really need like a build at all to get through it.
It's the first part of the game, essentially.
Yes, although I was talking to Matt, and I definitely agree that there's like a stronger motivation behind the first path that isn't present afterwards. But it's extremely enjoyable, just like with, I guess, all of Hades 1 and 2. But you have to complete it a number of times, or just to get the materials to gain access to the second path, where the gameplay really opens up.
That's really interesting. Okay. I don't want to say the game is twice as large, but I guess if that's the case, it does have twice as many areas, essentially.
Yeah, I would say maybe 1.5 times, because the first path only took maybe a couple attempts to get through, and by the time I had the materials for the second path, I already completed the first path many times. So
yeah, in terms of like content, like to me it did feel like, okay, this is Hades 2 and 3 like squished together.
They did a Back to the Future 2 and 3.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like Zek said, it's like they very clearly designed the progression around the assumption that players are going to die, like, let's say, like a couple times in each new region that they go deeper and deeper into. And thus, like, by then you would have assumedly like harvested the right materials, which you need a bunch of materials. And it would probably take like 10 or 12 runs, I think, or around that, to even unlock the Olympus pathway. So like Zek, it's like, I'm not like a, very highly skilled gamer or anything like that, but like I beat it relatively in a few runs just because I played so much Hades 1. And then I was like, without the kind of story urgency, I have to like replay this run a few times so that I can even begin the other run, when I think they're kind of meant to go in tandem a little bit. Like they kind of assume that you're going to jump back and forth a few times to get certain weapon materials and like to unlock certain things in progression. But so that was a bit interesting, I thought. Like it didn't always jive that smoothly.
Yeah, I imagine the gameplay loop is, I mean, pretty similar to the original. It's still a roguelite, so it's fight, die, repeat, essentially. And Zek, you described that gameplay loop as simple and addictive. So maybe actually this would be a good question for both of you to see how you differ. What would you say a typical run looks like start to finish? Just let's stick to the early game. Let's stick to the underworld rather than get into late game spoilers.
Okay, so an underworld run is usually you just pick the boons or power-ups that you like. I guess you can experiment with different power-ups. Like your build doesn't really matter, and at least for me, like probably beat most of the bosses without getting hit a single time. So that was my experience with the underworld.
I think compared to Hades 1, like you unlock there are 6 weapons again, but you unlock like the first 4 or even 5 weapons like really early on. Like you could have a new weapon in each of the first like 5 runs just about. So it kind of like throws a lot at you and a lot of options at you in the beginning. But like Hades 1, as soon as you enter any pathway, the game throws a random god's boon at you. And unless you're wearing a trinket of that god, that kind of decides a lot of the run that you're going to have, especially in like the underworld path. So there's a lot of returning gods from the first game. And then there's like a handful, I think there's 5 new gods with new boons and like new play styles. And all the old gods, like there are some repeated boons, like Zeus might have like his double strike lightning or the dodge lightning. But generally like they're also retooled. So like, for example, Poseidon had a really incredible boon in Hades 1 that was called Tidal Charge, where you would dash and it would make a huge splash of damage, but that's all gone. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't spoil like any of the new gods, but maybe I'll just say one that appears relatively early is Hestia, who is like the goddess of, or like the goddess or the Titan, I guess the goddess of like the sun and of fire. And she has this thing called Scorch, where you deal damage and it creates like this extra burning damage bar. So you can pretty much like rack up a bunch of scorch damage and then just like evade or kite the enemy and they'll just like melt. And that was like, for some of the bigger bosses, that really was a great boon. So a lot of my runs had scorch damage.
I guess my next question is actually the most important question in this entire interview, which is, are the gods still sexy?
Oh, yeah. Oh, woo! Yeah, Zek, what do you think?
I guess I didn't pay a lot of attention to that, but
I think Matt's woo, yeah, it kind of covers that. Yeah, so covers both of you actually covers us all. I am delighted that the gods are still sexy as ever. I actually wanted to ask a few more questions about essentially the weapons, because Hades had some great weapons. You had, the sword, but you also had like a rail gun. You could throw Captain America's mighty shield at one point. How does the combat arsenal differ here from the original?
There is some overlap. Like no weapons are repeated 1-to-1, but there's like some similar play styles. Like, can I name them like without spoiling too much? Like it's not really a big story thing.
I think that's fine.
You begin with probably the most unique new weapon. Well, maybe not the most unique, but a unique new weapon called the Witch's Staff, where you have this short range melee attack that has a pretty wide range of coverage. And then your special attack, you shoot like a long, narrow beam that can even pass through like a lot of barriers in the environment. So that's a great weapon, I thought. You have the Sister Blades, which kind of are similar to like the Cestus, like the gauntlet kind of things in Hades 1, where you're up close and you're attacking with like a knife and sickle, like a farmer's sickle. Moonstone Axe, which is like the giant sword, like it's an axe that is like slow but has a huge arc of damage. Umbral Flames, which it's like a dual wielding like torch that shoots magic flame balls that is like very magic heavy, which magic is like a new part of the combat where you have like a magic mana bar above your HP. So like that really made my runs very change whenever I was using that kind of weapon. And then Argent Skull, which I don't know about you, Zach, this one was like the hardest for me to like wrap my head around, where you throw these like 4 giant flaming skulls with like the attack button, and then you press a special button to dash to them, similar to the spear in Hades 1, but like much more explosive and like slow. And then the last one, which takes a little bit of time to unlock, is called the Black Coat, which correct me if I'm wrong, is like this is like a mecha suit kind of thing that you wear on your upper body, where you're punching and dashing around with like jet boosters, like very sci-fi feeling. And then you can fire like heat-seeking missiles that home in on the enemy, which that one is a ton of fun.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of variety with the weapons.
I know it's a mech suit, but it sounds like a creepy Victorian pub.
Black Coat.
The Black Coat. Anyway.
Meet me at the Moonstone Axe. Yeah.
I guess because of the addition of magic, Zach, one of the things that you mentioned in your review is that the gameplay leans much more on the depth of mechanics rather than on fast-paced action. How would you say a general point of combat, not necessarily of a boss, but you enter into a room, there's some enemies. How would it differ from that of Hades 1?
So some of the enemies are similar in that like reaction does matter, but just in general, especially with the bosses, like if you've ever raided in an MMO, that's what it feels like. Like you can kind of predict the actions from the bosses. So even on the very first time, you could beat a boss without any issues if you're good at predicting what they're going to do next, because it's more about standing in the right spot rather than just reacting to what they're doing.
You also mentioned Omega moves, which I guess are like super powerful charged attacks. And how does incorporating these attacks into the combat change the general strategy that you'd walk into a room with?
So generally, I think the encounters are designed around the fact that you have Omega moves. So if you can predict what they're doing and get to like a safe spot, you have a few seconds to charge up a move, and that's going to be your like reward, I guess. You can punish any enemy if you just understand their moveset.
Matt, what was your take on them?
Yeah, because they're new, like I'm a simple is best kind of player. Like in any action RPG, like I just like to go like physical damage. Mm-hmm. So it took me a while to wrap my head around the Omega moves, or to actually like incorporate them. But a lot of the boons, especially like the deeper you get into a run, kind of hinge on you using Omega moves to like and like draining your mana. They really encourage you to drain your mana, which often like will boost your damage or heal you or do like a variety of things, right? So yeah, like Zek said, it's like they might heavily telegraph a giant attack that could potentially one-shot you in the case of some bosses. But if you can stand in the right area, you can charge up like huge damage. So it is a lot slower, more methodical. Instead of Zagreus in Hades 1 with his like triple dash, where you're just like frenetically flying around the arena, you have one slower dash, and then if you hold the dash button, you sprint after that. So it was a little more like thoughtful and like even soulsy, I thought, where it's like I have one roll, I have to make it count, right? Which I actually, at first it was a bit tricky, but I quite enjoyed it in the end.
Zach, a few minutes ago, you mentioned MMOs, and that's something you actually mentioned in your review, where you talk about boss fights in relation to MMOs. And I'm curious, what is how?
So basically in an MMO, you have to, I guess, like I do all the rating blind. So you have to predict what the boss is doing, and you have to be in the right spot in advance. With Hades 2, when you're fighting a boss, you can kind of know what they're doing in advance, and you can see that, if I stand here, I'll have a few seconds of extra time where I can charge up an attack. So I think like the fights are designed around that, and that's why you have the charged moves. That's why you have
the Omega moves. Yeah,
Omega moves. That's why you have mana. That's why like all the or I guess some of the boons are designed around that.
And the pickup item, like the dataless hammers, which completely change like your attack or your special, like basically it makes a whole new weapon in some cases. They also have like you can change your Omega moves. So like you kind of realize, oh, like I should be using these because I have 3 options with my dataless hammer and all 3 of them are changing my Omega moves. Like they do kind of slowly push you towards using them more and more.
One of the reasons that I love bosses in the original game was because I'm such a story lover, is because bosses were kind of awesome characters and they had amazing designs. And in this particular case, I'm just curious, what are the boss designs like in this game?
They're great. I think they're just as, in my opinion, they're just as good as Hades 1. So they nailed it in that regard.
It feels a lot more like, again, with the telegraphing, like a lot more fair too. Like Hades 1 had a lot of great bosses, but like I always got stressed out playing against Theseus and the Minotaur in Hades 1. It just felt so like, I don't know, like depending on your weapon and build, it was like get off me kind of feeling, right? But this one feels a lot more just like every boss has their own pattern, and I don't know, it was a lot more enjoyable to me. My hands are not like sweating as much, and I'm not flying around, and panicking as much. But and story wise, like they're great. Like there are 4 bosses in each route. As well as like a variety of like kind of mini bosses that even have their own health bars and everything. Like they don't feel like mini bosses, but I don't want to. I mean, they're all like they were all available in early access, but like without spoiling any of them, like they're fantastic. And if you're a fan of Greek mythology and you're like, oh, I wonder if this character will ever show up. Yeah, almost every character you can think of shows up at some point, either as a boss or as an aid. And yeah, I loved that. I love seeing like, finally, there they are,
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, the bosses are super memorable characters in the original game. I mean, the first boss, of course, being one of your love interests. And then you have Theseus. And I'm curious, how are the bosses developed in this? It's very similarly just through like tons of dialogue before the fight?
That was one thing that kind of disappointed me a little bit, was like, yeah, they all have like great interpersonal relationships with Malinui that kind of develop over time. Like a lot of bosses, it's not just like they're blindly raging against you. A lot of them are like, like here we go, the same old song and dance again, right? Similar to like when you would fight Megara or like Hades in Hades 1, it's like you have various reasons for fighting each other. And the first boss in the underworld route, Hecate, is like your teacher. She's like the witch that raised you like your mother, pretty much. And they always have like interesting things. Like she's always like testing you and commenting on like how strong you're getting. And she'll say like every time you fight her, you unlock new incantations, which are like the upgrades to the worlds that will like help you, like new health pools and new item shops and things like that. But yeah, I love like the developing relationships. The only thing I didn't like about the bosses was there wasn't that much change in the bosses. Whereas Hades 1, it's like the Bone Hydra will like change each time you fight it.
Learning.
That's right. I was trying to remember his name. And like Megara, like she would swap out with like her sisters at times. But I haven't played enough runs to like see this, but like I haven't seen any real change in the bosses themselves. But I don't know, Zek, have you encountered any of that?
There is some in the second path I've noticed. I still like haven't complete enough to like see all the variations, but that's also why I think it has like 1.5 times the content, because Hades had like one, had that path, but it's very fleshed out, while here I think they're kind of leaning on the 2 paths.
And I mean, in the original game, there were also I guess you could say advanced versions. Like, yes, Meg's sisters were there, but also like Theseus originally, you're just fighting Theseus, and eventually he shows up, and I can't remember, does he have like a chariot?
Yeah, that's part of the like heat, like after you beat the game, you get like the heat challenges. So I assume like there must be versions of that. I have not like had the balls to play the heat version or the fever version yet, but I'm sure that's there too though.
Okay. Without any big spoilers, because I imagine that some of the bosses are spoilers. Zach, who is your favorite boss?
Uh, I would say I liked most of them, but I would say the final bosses of both paths.
Mhm.
I know it's a cop out answer, but
Yeah, those are great. I I think my favorite boss from like a character and story standpoint too, or just like characterization. I won't name him, but he is voiced by Ben Starr in the Olympus Path.
Ah,
Great character.
okay. Um, there's a character I wanted to mention that, Zach, you mentioned in the review named Nemesis. But before we talk about them, I don't know whether or not this is going to be the case, but I think this has been on the minds of a lot of people. Hades and specifically Zagreus. I would argue Zagreus is some of the best bisexual representation ever in a video game. And the day we're recording this, I believe, is Bisexuality Awareness Day. So this is actually a good day to ask this question. Does Hades 2 honor the series' history when it comes to bisexuality? In other words, how queer is the game?
like personally, I didn't notice like a lot of just romance in general, but I'm also like sometimes I'm oblivious to that in games if it's like not obvious. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's a little bit of like romance that blooms between Melanoi and Moros, who is like Doom incarnate. He's kind of like a stand-in for Thanatos from Hades 1.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I mean, like it just you just kind of get this like sexual vibrancy from a lot of the gods. Like he's not like a boon giver, but I will say like Dionysus appears at sometimes, and now he's like fully fleshed out in party mode, wearing a leopard speedo and like holding 2 cups of wine. Like there's a lot of like just like I don't know sexuality going on, but like nothing really like LGBTQ that stood out to me yet. But it might be something kind of like Achilles, where it develops deeper as you go into the game more. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, actually, I brought them up. I'm just curious now. Nemesis. So this character appears during a run, and how does that work, Zach?
So it's a random event where sometimes she challenges you to like a competition of who can kill the most um, enemies.
So same as Xanatos then.
And if you win, you get gold. If you don't, then you lose gold. And then she'll pick one of the paths and lock you out of that unless you're fast enough to like get it before her. And sometimes there are just like other scenes where you're like you have to deal enough damage to her in a period of time, and if you win, you get a reward.
Yeah, she'll be like, hit me with all you got, and you like in like relatively early on, and you have to like do 1,000 damage or whatever with your build. But yeah, and even like when you show up to Charon's shop, sometimes you'll have her or like another character I won't name. They'll be like perusing the stuff and like counting their coins, and like if you don't act quickly enough, they might buy the thing that you're planning on buying. But in terms of like Thanatos like characters or like encounters.
Mm-hmm.
I was counting before, and I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's about 5 different characters that like appear randomly in like battle areas, and like they can help you. They can compete with you. Like I really liked that part. That felt more developed here.
Yeah, because I mean that character development was one of the things that really separated Hades from its brethren. And specifically, once Zagreus died, you get sent back home, and your home was populated by people who you were close to, your family essentially, and you could build up those relationships over time. Here, I believe the starting location it's still there. Like you have a place where you start, and that's where you start every run. And just like Hades, there are NPCs that you can interact with and meet here. Zach, out of curiosity, when you were playing, like how did the character relationships work and develop here?
So every time you finish a run, like you can talk, just like with Hades 1, you can talk to like everyone in the starting location, and there's always going to be different dialogue. And same with the bosses. So it's very much just a continuation of what Hades 1 did.
Yeah, you could die to the same boss or enemy like multiple times, and they'll have something new to say about it. They'll go like, oh, like you met the blah blah blah, like are they still doing blah blah blah? And they'll reference like all the mythology of Greek stories that have, ostensibly happened in the past at some point.
I can't help but feel, based on what I know about this story, the stakes are obviously very, very different than Hades 1. Hades 1, it was literally you wanted to find your mom. The stakes were extremely, extremely personal. But the reality is that after every death, you went home, and there was home was extremely domestic. Like it really was. You had your dad, and you had your detached dad. You had your teacher. You had your idiot kind of brother type character over in the corner. You had your mom-ish person. I can't help but feel that the story and the structure here probably have the opening area, the place you keep going back to, probably has a very different feel to it.
There's a sense of like urgency, especially like before you complete the underworld's like route, of like, yeah, we're all like hidden in this, like in the woods in a camp. And it's like, there's this looming sense of danger where it's like when a new character joins, they're like, how do they find us? And like, were you followed by Kronos, And like Kronos is kind of like slowly approaching the woods at times. Like at times he comes dangerously close to like finding your encampment. But it does feel very homey, and like a lot of the characters that you meet, it's all new characters, maybe with the exception of one character who I loved that he came back, who are kind of like analogous to the old ones. So like in place of Achilles, you have Odysseus, who is kind of like your mentor and like strategist. And like you have a vendor character, and Nemesis kind of stands in for Megara a little bit, like in terms of personality. So yeah, I liked all the new characters, and like there wasn't that much like new in terms of relationships. Like they all felt kind of like, oh, this is the Hades 2 version of this character, but it did feel very homey while still feeling urgent. Like now that I'm talking about it, it reminded me of like Red Dead Redemption 2, where it's like you have this camp that's constantly in danger of being raided, but it's still your home,
I feel like I miss some of that in the underworld because I guess like when just like a couple runs in, I finished it, and maybe it didn't show like certain things that was supposed to show like over a period of multiple runs. So yeah, I definitely missed a lot of that.
Yeah, because it like they assume that you would die like, I don't know, 12 times or something like that, like before you beat it the first time.
I believe I will die more than 12 times before I beat this the first time.
So the trickle of characters is quite slow. It's like you get one new element pretty much every time you return. So I can see what you mean, Zek, of like, oh, like this character isn't supposed to show up until like run 20 or run 25 or something, maybe.
Because all I got from the I guess the part of Kronos was he was like, like you're coming here, you're to like beat me again. Like please don't. Whatever. Like that was all I got from that.
You just make him more and more angry. Yeah, Grandpa. I'm back to beat up Grandpa.
Well, actually, that's an interesting transition into the next question I was going to have, which is, in the first Hades, beating the game for the first time is really the beginning of a much larger story, where, spoilers for Hades, by the way, you beat your dad, you escape the underworld, you find your mom, and you discover that you're tied to the underworld, and you die, and you just show back, you come back again, and then you have to start, keep visiting your mom, and the story develops from there. Basically, you beat the game, and the post game is almost as big as the actual game. Is that the case here as well, or does the dual structure of the underworld on Olympus kind of handle that kind of feel?
So to get the proper ending, you have to beat both paths several times, and at least with the underworld, you technically only have to beat it once if you get like all the materials through just runs where you don't finish. Like I had to finish it several times, I guess, but the ending cutscene does change every time you complete the underworld. And then with the second path, the surface, you have to complete it, I think at least 5 times. I don't remember the exact.
There's an item in the underworld too where you have to beat Kronos like 6 times, I think. So it might be like 5 or 6 like each, which Hades 1, I think you had to beat it like 10 times to like get a fulfilling conclusion to like the story with your mother. And then like they rolled credits at that point, I think.
Okay. Just so the audience here has some context, we're going to talk a little bit about we've talked about the gameplay and stuff. I just want to talk about the technical side for a second. What platforms did you both play it on?
I played it on Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Switch 1.
Now, this is going to be an interesting question. Before I ask the obvious question, did you each primarily play handheld or docked?
Docked.
I played handheld, I guess most of the time, but I did docked for a little bit just to see the differences.
Okay, I'm just going to assume that the Switch 2 can handle this game no problem. Would that be fair, Zek?
Yes, although I did mention that I guess it was originally developed for PC, so on a smaller screen, sometimes the like effects can like blend in together if you're not familiar with them, but on a larger screen it's not a problem.
Okay. Matt, could you even play this game on the Switch?
I was a little bit worried, like, before I booted it up, but no, it ran wonderfully. Like it was like, I'm not sure like the technical specs, but like I would say it was like 60 frames per second without a single hitch or a drop in the entire game. Like it's so smooth.
Thank you, Supergiant. Yeah, I very much doubt they would have released this thing in an unplayable state at this point.
I want to compare it to the other two, like visually though, because I did find like some of the backgrounds are a little bit like blurry, but like it was hard for me to discern if that's like the style, especially like in the first area of the underworld. I thought like immediately I was like, it's a little bit hazy and blurry in places. But did you get that feeling, Zek, or maybe that's just the stylistic choice?
I'd have to, I guess, look into that more. I thought it was fine, but
yeah, I wouldn't say like ugly by any means, but just I wonder it might be a bit more sharp or crisp, because I remember like Hades 1 looking not crazy better on PS5, but like definitely like an upgrade.
It's good to hear that it runs on both systems, especially because a lot of people out there still only have Switch 1s. And the fact of the matter is they can buy Hades 2 and still have a great experience playing it on the Switch 1. And there are not a ton of modern games that you can say that about the original Switch now. So that's really cool. I wanted to pivot into some of the presentation and specifically the two aspects of the first game, which I was most impressed with. First off is the voice acting. The acting in the first game was just exceptional. Everyone was right on. Parts were brilliant. All of the gods were right on the money and hilarious and jealous, and it was just an amazingly acted game. And I'm assuming that is continued here.
Yes, absolutely.
There's like way more characters in the first game even, and like all great voice acting. You would love to just listen to them talk for hours on end, which you kind of do. Did any character stand out for you, Zek? Like, did you really enjoy the voice acting of any character or characters in particular?
I enjoyed all the gods. I enjoyed Kronos. I think his performance was good.
He's very menacing, and like he comes across as very like elitist, and like he talks down on you in such a like, you're nothing to me, like you're just a little baby. Like I love his like, I don't know, atmosphere there, and he's like this like tall, lanky character. He's not like the typical giant jacked titan that you might imagine, but I liked him a lot. And in the Olympus route, I really enjoyed Polyphemus, the Cyclops from the Odyssey. I thought he was just like really funny, and like the way he develops and talks, it's like very casual in some ways, and like he becomes almost like chummy with Melinoi, who like it's not as I would say like Melinoi especially is not like as quippy as Zagreus was. Like she's not like as funny. She's more serious about her mission of like avenging her family. But yeah, there's lots of funny characters like Scylla, the sea monstrous kind of character. She has like a Minnesotan accent. Yeah, and like she was kind of a funny character. Like she's kind of annoying, but like in a funny way. So yeah, a lot of variety. Not just like, oh, sexy British voices. There's like a lot of variety now.
Neat. Okay. The other thing that Supergiant Games is known for, of course, is the music. Because the music of Supergiant Games is astonishingly good. Like Darren Korb, he He has written it. He has come back out for this. It's amazing that both Hades Town, which is considered a musical that's considered brilliant for its film music, and Hades, I think they have equally amazing soundtracks, but that's just me. Basically, I just want to know, how's the soundtrack in this?
Yeah, it's great. I think like a great example that I pointed out in the review is the second boss in the underworld, where the music kind of changes depending on who you beat. It's three like different
Sirens.
Yeah, essentially. And even though the fight itself is quite simple, I think the music elevates the encounter.
A guitarist, a drummer, and a singer, and like, yeah, you knock them out, and they leave the vocal track. And actually, the more you play that boss, like I've only encountered 2, I think, but they have a variety of songs that they play. So like after you beat them once, they go, "We wrote a new song for you. It's called I'm Going to Claw Out Your Eyes." And like that one I really loved.
And also, if you like inflict like status ailments like slow, it changes the tempo of the song.
Yes, yeah, so many details like that.
So it's reactive. That's so cool.
Yeah, and like it, like the boss will like kind of hide, and like her voice will become muffled, like, you know, and canned. But I found, I don't know if I think you said this in your review too, Zek. The underground or the underworld route was like more of the same, and like compared to Hades 1, but I feel like the Olympus route had like a lot more variety, and like Korb like really pushed the envelope for the music going up.
Yeah. The Olympus route is just from like a gameplay and spectacle perspective, it's just amazing. Like your build matters a lot more too, and it gives you paths right at the start so that you can kind of get, I guess, like something closer to what you want each time, right? And that, I think that makes a huge impact.
It really turns the formula, like the gameplay formula of like the randomness, and like each of the 3 major regions are so like unique from the other 6 regions in Hades 1 and 2, like the underworld route. But yeah, I love that.
I suppose that we're going to know this soon enough once the game releases and it starts getting memed like crazy as the original favorite did. But I'm just curious, in Hades, I guess the song that really took off was Good Riddance, sung by Eurydice and Orpheus. And it's, you know, this gorgeous vocal tune. Are there any vocal tunes in this too?
Yes, I guess primarily the second boss, but I think there are some others.
There are songs like with a certain god who is returning, but not as like a boon giving god. They'll come back, and like you can sing with them. You can join in what they're singing, and you can also join in with like the witches chanting with Hecate. So like there's a little more, vocal tracks there, but a few more.
Neat. Okay, I think we're going to just wrap this up because we've been almost talking for an hour. Zek, in your review, you summarized the game as saying, if Hades was action, Hades 2 is precision. Can you expand a little bit more on what you mean by that?
Yes. So the Omega moves, for example.
Yeah.
Just the boss mechanics, where you want to stand in the right spot so that you can get more, time to charge your attacks. Like all of that just feels completely different from Hades 1, where like your reaction time matters more there.
Matt, out of curiosity, how would you describe the real big difference between these two games? Same way or in another way?
It is more thoughtful and methodical in a good way. And the vibe I get also from the aesthetic, there's a lot more influence from the Odyssey, whereas there was a little more Iliad in Hades 1. And even from a gameplay perspective, like this may be scratching very deeply, but like just like the Odyssey, it's very crafty and clever, and you have to be very like strategic in that way, very thoughtful. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that. If you like the Odyssey, you'll especially like this game with all the characters that appear as well.
God, Supergiant does some deep thinking into these games. Well, I would like to thank you both for plowing through this game, and it sounds like you're both going to be playing it for a while still, because there's still a lot to enjoy in this, as will, I think, everyone who plays it. But before we go off, I kind of wanted to ask a sort of discussion question, but it sort of also goes along with this. As I said earlier, Hades 2 was unexpected because Supergiant had never done a sequel to one of their games. They always moved forward. And in fact, in each one of their games, they kind of tried something new in each one, and it refined their approach to the point where they could pull off Hades, and it could be brilliant. A brilliant mix of character, story, action. And Hades 2 was the first sequel. So I suspect that the next game they make is probably not going to be Hades 3. I mean, they're probably going to be doing a little bit more work on this, but I'm curious, where would you like to see Supergiant Games go next in terms of genre, style, that kind of thing?
Well, they invented the wheel with Hades 1, right?
So yeah, they did.
If they're making new titles, then they just have to do it again. If they pursue Hades 3 in the future, then I would say keep doing what you're doing right. You don't need to like invent it again.
Oh yeah, like Supergiant could make a frigging fortune if they release Hades 3, obviously. I don't know, but going from I watched the whole documentary. I love the documentary. It's so good. But going from that documentary, it really does seem that Supergiant's game are really the kind of people who are like, okay, what's next? So I'm curious where they might go next.
I wonder. I mean, it's way out of their wheelhouse of like their kind of like hand-drawn aesthetic, but I would like to see them go 3D almost. Like I want to see them try 3D, like similar to the indie studio like House Marquee, who, you know, started indie and then ended up doing oh my gosh, one of my favorite games. Why am I forgetting it? The roguelike with the crashed ship alien aesthetic. What is that called? Returnal. Yeah, I want to see them do like a Returnal where it's like, okay, let's take our formula and like up the production value, because they can certainly have the like funding, I think, and the support from like fans. Like people will buy whatever they make from here on. So I want to see them go AAA or even bigger.
Where I would like to see them go, and this is just me because I am me. I'm thinking, I look at their approach and it's isometric, and most of their games kind of have the isometric approach, and they are incredibly strong on story and characters. I would like to see them do a point-and-click adventure game, but not like a point-and-click adventure game in the sense of like LucasArts or something, not like Maniac Mansion, but in terms of like, I mean, to be completely honest, I would love to see their take on Maniac Mansion. But I'm thinking like Sanatorium was a classic point-and-click adventure game with an isometric point of view. A more recent one was Stasis, where you are on an abandoned spaceship. They're both kind of horror games, but I would really like to see their take using their art style, their, you know, chosen perspective, and see where they could go with pure story throughout. I don't know. I mean, it would not sell particularly well. I think that one of the reasons people love Supergiant Games is because they create brilliant gameplay systems with amazing gameplay loops. But I would just love to see them go crazy just on story and create something like that. I think it would be very interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think with the roguelite genre, it's kind of hard to create like the best story because you have to keep it going, right? Because you can't just have, like I mentioned in the review, like a proper ending. I think if they focus more on just the story, they could create something really great.
Okay, well, speaking of creating things that are really great, if you're looking for a way to support us here at RPGFan, we've opened a store. You can find it at www.rpgfan.com/shop. And in there, you can find all kinds of things. Mike is really intent on pushing the shorts. We have shorts in the shop now. And I think shorts are awesome. The timing's a little off because it's fall. But if you built up a good tan during the summer and you feel like showing off them legs with RPGFan.com style, check out the shorts. You can also check out our collaboration with Hyperplay RPG, which is the RPG Fan Review Card Collection, which is a showcase of nearly 300 of our review cards. You can see them on Instagram, Blue Sky, our social media, essentially, that are little capsule reviews, essentially. And I love these things. And I love this book. So I say check that out. Another way to support us is to check out our past episodes of Random. You can check out last week's, where it was a random book club, which are some of my favorite episodes. We chatted about the recent Bitmap Books release, 50 indie games that changed the world. Incidentally, Hades was actually in there as one of the indie games that changed the world. So if you are looking to learn more about the making of the first game, check out this book. We do have other podcasts here at RPG Fan. We have Retro Encounter, and the last few episodes have been spent chatting about Yoko Taro's first game, Drakengard, and now they have an episode focusing entirely on him as a creator. So if you're a fan of Nier, I say check that out. We also have Rhythm Encounter, and because we are doing, oh wait, did I mention this off the top? I don't think so. We're doing 2 episodes in a row. So next week we're going to have another random encounter, and because we're covering another game that I will mention in just a minute. So we had 2 weeks of Rhythm Encounter. The episode 2 weeks ago was focusing on some new music in Final Fantasy 14, and the latest one was a creator-focused episode on Naoshi Mizuta. So absolutely check out those episodes. If you'd like to get in contact with us here, you can fire us off a message at podcast@rpgfan.com. I would absolutely love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for future episodes or themes, discussion questions, love those. Anything you'd like to share, fire me off a message there. If you'd like to send me an email directly, you can do so at my email, jlogan@rpgfan.com. You can also find me at jonologan.bluesky.social. Zek, where can we find you online?
You can find me on the RPG Fan website in the staff section. You can read my reviews.
Neat. And Matt?
Yeah, same. Check my stuff out on rpgfan.com or read my personal writing at mattwardellwrites.wordpress.com.
Lovely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends. You can help us get the word out there, and you can rate us on iTunes or your other podcast player of choice. Leave us a review. We'd love that. And I would like to thank both of you, Zek and Matt. I thank you for coming on and talking about this for an hour now. It just sounds like a remarkable, remarkable game. I cannot wait to play this. God, it's killing me. I cannot wait to play this.
Oh yeah, Hades 2 is a great time killer. Everybody.
I'm gonna work in crickets there. That's sort of Solosi's joke where he put crickets into the podcast.
No.
Anyway, you're not wrong though. The lure of just one more run is powerful. I get why roguelikes are so popular and so just addictive. Just one more run. And remember, we're going to be back next week, and we're going to be focused entirely on the Final Fantasy Tactics remaster that's coming out. So absolutely join us for that if you are a fan of Final Fantasy, if you're a fan of tactics, SRPGs, or heck, if you just like me. So thank you very much, Zek and Matt. And to everyone out there listening, whatever you're playing, have fun.